Over the years, we've seen that some of the best opportunities for growth can be embedded in chaos.
What's one way you can begin to discover these opportunities? Join us for our Quick Take, episode 426 of Growth Igniters Radio with Pam Harper and Scott Harper.
This episode is brought to you by Business Advancement Incorporated, enabling successful leaders and companies to accelerate to their next level of success. On the web at businessadvance.com. And now, here's Pam and Scott.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Pam Harper, founding partner and CEO of Business Advancement Incorporated. And right along with me, as always, is my business partner and husband, Scott Harper.
Hi, everybody. It's great to be with you again. And as always, our purpose here is to ignite new insights, inspiration, and immediately useful ideas visionary leaders can use to ignite game-changing innovation, transformation, and growth.
And remember, Growth Igniters Radio is only one of the ways we help top leadership teams ignite game-changing, transformational growth. Curious about how we might help you and your company ignite your own growth? Well, let's talk. Visit businessadvance.com today and schedule a call.
Now, it won't come as a surprise that we're all facing a pretty chaotic economic environment these days. And maybe you who are listening out there are among the CEOs, C-suite executives, and corporate directors who are concerned that the old rules of business are shifting in some pretty big ways.
Businesses of every size, from Wall Street to Main Street, are feeling the ripple effects of shifting tariffs, unstable supply chains, emerging technologies, and much more.
Yeah.
And this impacts employees, customers, investors, and virtually every stakeholder.
That's right. Consider this. The real challenge isn't just leading through the chaos. It's how you look at the chaos. Changing your frame to share what you know and to discover what you may be missing can be a game changer. This can help you and your team change your collective frame of reference and literally change your future.
It sounds great, but getting started on changing your collective frame means getting past the inertia of how we all habitually look at our situations. There's a lot of research that we're wired to look for patterns. And here's where the old rules come in. Do this, don't do that, and more. These patterns of thought and action can be useful under relatively stable conditions. But in the rapidly changing world, habitual ways of thinking can keep us circling in what I call the orbit of the status quo. Busy, but not breaking into new territory.
Yeah, and that can put any company at risk of disruption as the world keeps changing.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. Changing your frame doesn't need to start with the outside world. It really starts with becoming aware of how you see the world. And this includes the stories you tell yourself, the assumptions you lean on, the questions you ask, and those you don't ask.
Oh, yeah.
Doing this can lead to some surprising discoveries.
Oh, that's right. And here's an example. We were working with a division head of a global healthcare company and his executive team. They had bold plans to expand their business tenfold in a critical new market, and they wanted to do it within 7 years. Now, the strategy seemed sound in principle. Everyone around the table agreed with it.
But progress had stalled.
That's right.
Despite the outward alignment, the team wasn't taking the necessary steps to achieve the key milestones, and it was mystifying.
Yes, it was. As we spoke with each executive, it became clear that they weren't resisting the plan, but they were framing the situation through the lens of what had been, thinking about past pressures, past constraints, past expectations.
Not only that, each person believed they were carrying their concerns alone.
Yeah. Now, once we helped them collectively surface what was unspoken, they were surprised that they weren't alone in feeling like they were circling around in a pattern that just didn't work anymore. When they started talking about their patterns of bringing the strategy to life in new ways, they were able to change the frame.
Yes, they discovered they had more in common than they originally thought. This is what enabled them to look at their options in new ways. And from that place, they were able to make the hard collaborative decisions that were required to move forward. Changing their frame literally changed their future.
That's right. And their plans went ahead at full steam. And if you want to do this for your company, it starts with changing the way you look at patterns. So given that, let's talk about 3 immediately useful ideas for doing this. Pam, what's the first idea?
Challenge yourself to recognize and break free of your habitual thinking patterns. And we all have them.
Yeah.
And it starts with ourselves. I mean, we need to recognize how we actually think about ambiguous situations. So one of the ways to do this is through some of the games that are out there, like Wordle or Strands from the New York Times.
Yeah.
And these games push us to recognize patterns differently. And when you play, you quickly recognize that sticking with initial assumptions about these patterns rarely leads to success.
That's right. For those of you who aren't familiar with these games, Wordle asks you to guess a 5-letter word within 6 tries. You have to use logic and pattern recognition to rule out what won't work so you can home in on what does work. Strands presents a jumble of letters in a matrix, and it challenges us to find themed words hidden within the grid.
The fascinating part is how these games train our brains to think differently. When I play, I start by looking for obvious answers. But as I go along, I have to rethink my approach. I have to look in different directions. I have to go backwards and up and down and sideways. And sometimes I get stuck, and that's when Scott and I collaborate. He might spot something I don't see or vice versa. But I always come away from this with a feeling that my brain is more flexible.
Right, and sometimes even together we don't see the pattern at first. But when we shift perspectives, maybe we're scanning the letters in a new way or thinking beyond our usual word choices, we can suddenly see what was hiding in plain sight.
The same dynamic can show up in business. When you and your team can break habitual ways of seeing and thinking, you can begin to uncover hidden opportunities that can move you into the future.
Building on this, let's have a second idea.
Strengthen connections with others in your organization to increase the trust it takes to break old patterns and shift perspectives. This is where games can also come into play.
Right. For instance, in another company, the C-suite needed to collaborate in new ways as their company was growing. Their usual habits of thinking and collaborating just weren't working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
To help them break free from their entrenched patterns, we introduced a series of games to change the frame of their relationship with each other.
As the experience unfolded, the connections between the C-suite executives became stronger. They began to see their familiar challenges through a different frame, and they started having different conversations that enabled them to collaborate in ways they hadn't before.
In fact, they started discussing how they could spread this approach to the entire company, and this helped them experience top and bottom line growth that was worth millions of dollars.
When people move beyond transactional relationships, they begin to care more and trust each other more. That's what creates the safety and energy needed to change the frame and change their future.
Right. Now, building on the idea of strengthening connections, what's the third idea?
Expand your circle of connections outside your organization. One of the most frame-shifting things you can do is to deliberately interact with people who have very different perspectives.
Right. A few of the ways we do this include attending conferences in different industries, having conversations with people from outside our field, and of course, inviting new voices to join us in Growth Igniters Radio.
New perspectives can inspire insights you never imagined.
That's right.
And that's one of the reasons people bring me in to speak at their association conferences or their executive retreats. When you listen to somebody who has a different frame of reference, it can help you break some established patterns. And this can enable participants to feel differently, think differently, and act differently in ways that can change their future.
And you can build new perspective taking into your regular routine as well. When you consistently tap into insights from employees, customers, suppliers, investors, and even industry disruptors, you can naturally absorb a wide range of perspectives and fresh ideas.
And this can help you pivot faster because you're constantly changing your frame as the world keeps changing.
Absolutely. So, Pam, we're at the end of the episode. Can you leave us with some final thoughts?
As the rules keep getting rewritten, the key to leading growth in uncharted territory starts from within. Staying aware of the way you see your situation and making a conscious decision to change the frame is the starting point. The patterns you notice, the voices you invite in, and the connections you create with others can make all the difference as you build new value for the future.
And that's our quick take for today. Thanks to all of you out there for listening to Growth Igniters Radio with Pam Harper and Scott Harper. If you're enjoying these conversations, spread the good word and become a recommender. Just open Growth Igniters Radio on your favorite podcast app and write a review. And feel free to share episodes on your social media.
Until next time, this is Pam Harper
And Scott Harper.
wishing you continued success and leaving you with this question to discuss with your team. Starting today, what's one way we can reframe how we think about our company's growth that could help us change what's possible for tomorrow?
Growth Igniters and Growth Igniters Radio with Pam Harper and Scott Harper are registered service marks of Business Advancement Incorporated. All Growth Igniters Radio episodes are copyrighted productions of Business Advancement Incorporated, intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other uses including copying, editing, redistribution, and publication without prior written consent of Business Advancement Incorporated are prohibited. All rights reserved.